there's very few shows that shouldn't film. I mean, that's one of the main reason I'd say, okay, yeah, I'm going back on this. Reintroduce a bit of the magic that we had to sets. Like you feel a bit more cowboy than when you shoot with digital, that everybody see the final result in front of
Hmm.
them.
The first season was so great, just a great stepping off because it's film. I really wanted to bake the look in as much as I could. I embraced the darkness of it all. I'm not a video game player, but my sons are. When there was a possibility of doing this job, they said, you have to do this job.
Curious about creating high-quality YouTube videos? Enroll in video editing and production classes at Manhattan Edit Workshop to sharpen your skills and turn a hobby into a career. Start your journey to becoming a pro today. Hi, I'm Josh Apter from Manhattan Edit Workshop. Welcome to episode 56 of Sight, Sound, and Story, Behind the Lens of Fallout. Please like, subscribe, comment, let us know about the kinds of events that you want to see in the future. We will put them together for you. So I've been watching Fallout, bit of a freaky show, incredibly broad, huge. It's an amazing looking show. And of course, I love watching these sort of post-apocalyptic weirdo sci-fi shows. And I don't even play video games. So I'm just watching it as something like a story that I want to see. I'm also, a big Walton Goggins fan, so watching him even without a nose is pretty cool for me. I want to say welcome to the all-star team of cinematographers, John Conroy, ASC and ISC, and David Franco, who are going to talk about how they put all this together, how they create this look and deliver a show like Fallout to you. Our moderator tonight is Chad Anderson. He is a film professor and a teacher at Manhattan Edit Workshop, and an old friend. So we love having him around. And I'm going to thank filmmaker you tonight, American Cinema Editors, Edit Stock, Janet Dalton and Jason Banky from Manhattan Edit Workshop, who do all the work behind the scenes, and all I have to do is show up and do these intros, and it makes my job very, very easy. So sit back, relax, and enjoy watching our episode on Fallout Behind the Lens, episode 56.
Hello, and welcome to another installment of Sight, Sound, and Story, where we have the unique pleasure of talking to the artists and creators behind film editing, sound, and cinematography. My name is Chad Anderson. Today, I am delighted to be joined by the cinematographers behind this new fan favorite, Fallout. I'd like to include the cinematography team behind the second season, John Conroy and David Franco, whose work includes Westworld, Penny Dreadful, Alien Earth, Perry Mason, Game of Thrones, and too many shows and movies to mention. I couldn't go on and on about your biography history. But gentlemen, thank you so much for joining us today. I'm excited to talk about this show, Fallout. Welcome to
Thanks.
the
Thanks
show.
for having us.
Thank you for
Absolutely.
having us.
I was talking with my family this week. It's interesting how I think there's still a time of talking about, the film is not as good as the book, and then it became the film is not the same as the comic book. Now we're in a world where the film for the fans has to be the same as the video game because there's so many shows being come that have to be truthful or faithful to the video game. In terms of that, were you given references material about the video game, or are you Fallout players? Are you game players, or did you know what you were looking at when you have to look through the lens and make it feel like it's a video game?
I'm not a video game player, um, but my sons are.
Yeah.
And when there was a possibility of doing this job, they said, you have to do this job. And so they had given me the sort of lowdown on the lower of the job before I got there. So I had an idea and of the history and stuff like that. But and then I looked up the game, with them as well, just and they were able to show me things. But I'm coming from a generation of playing sports outside rather than games inside.
Always Pong.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The video game was Pong, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's basically the same thing for me. My kids knew there, but I mean, when I heard about the project and I might go on, I just went into the images. You can go on those websites where you see people play the game. So I did a bit of that just to get immersed into the world because I think this show is very compared to other show, that video game, this one is very close. They're
Yeah.
very, very careful of staying true to the props, the sets
Mhm.
and stuff. It's very much so.
In terms of making this series, in terms of the episodes that you were given, I'm always interested, I'm fascinated by the idea of a director or a showrunner, in this case, Genevieve Robert Dworet and Graham Wagner, giving a sense of tone. Was there, something that was conveyed to you in terms of what the mood was, what the feel was, what the design was in terms of what you were trying to capture and how the audience or the viewer was made to feel?
Yeah, so basically, this is the second season. I was kind of briefly at one point, I almost jumped on the first season. So, but this was the second, so it was very easy to go back to the first season, and that basically set this tone for me anyway. That was very, very, straightforward as far as taking. They loved what they did season one, so just to continue in that vein and maybe try to, improve when we can. But very much as far as the world, the look, the tone, this very much was set up the first season. But
What did you see when you saw that? Like, what was the when you saw the first season, you saw those kind of images of there. What was the instinctual reaction of what was going to be necessary in terms of that?
yeah, I mean the challenge and what I saw the challenge and the attraction to the subject. I mean, I guess it's the vast expanse and the complexity of the world that is very, very interesting and fun for us
Yeah,
deeply, I think, to tackle that challenge, instead of, so it's never two people talking in a
there's a
kitchen.
lot.
For me, I love the color and the color palette from season one. And like David said, like, that was so well done on the first season. It was a case of just trying to copy it and do justice to it and add a little bit of our own flavor to it. I wanted to make sure I didn't take it too bright or, because it's film. I didn't want to, because having shot, we both shot film before quite a lot, that I didn't want to end up going down the road of baking, being safe because it's film. I really wanted to bake the look in as much as I could.
Yeah.
So, I embraced the darkness of it all. So for me, that's kind of what I had hoped to kind of bring a little bit, I suppose, a little bit of darkness and visceral sort of filming. But the first season was so great. It was you're kind of, just a great stepping off.
So when you talk about that, you talked about David, you talked about the color palette, and all the colors. I think the colors in the post-apocalyptic world are amazing, and vibrant. There's also this sense of these flashback scenes, and in these flashback scenes, it feels very, 1950s. There is a kind of stylistic look to that. How do you change color while still maintaining the look of the show in that capacity? Is there a drastic transition between this takes place in this time period, and so we need to look like this time period? And what was your thoughts on color in that capacity?
Howard's the production designer, Howard Cummings, ultimately he would do a lot of that heavy lifting in terms of the color palette because, the sets are designed in that sort of, I suppose, enlightened or heightened color, especially for the sort of flashbacks. Um, so I think a combination of that and the color of light that we use, for different scenes, so you're not putting up against it. But for me, I think it'd be just having great conversations with production design, costume, the costume design, things like that.
I mean, very much, it's in the set, right? We photograph what's in front of us. I mean, we help emphasize a little bit, but those colors come primarily from the set design and the look of the costume, like you're saying. But obviously, those flashback are a little bit more, I guess, hyper, dreamy, perfect world for me. That's how I took it. So, emphasize a tiny little bit more that perfect world, that sleek world.
From what I've read, and I may be totally wrong, there is an LED volume wall involved in a lot of this. Yes.
Yeah,
So um I'm not sure if you guys have worked on LED volume walls before in other productions. I didn't do that much research, but working with practical real sets and then the volume world, I always wonder. I can't imagine how complicated that is to work with a virtual screen that's giving you the set. Is it a pleasure or is it challenging or is it both?
Yeah, I mean, I think generally we have the same. It's a bit of both. I would say a technical challenge. I mean, the biggest challenge for us, anyway, for me, I'd done a bunch of, virtual world like that before, but we shouldn't film. So this is something that is completely, I think we're the only one who done that. No, right, John? I don't think I
we
ever
did a
heard
bit on
another
Westworld.
production.
We did a bit on Westworld on the last season of Westworld.
Ah, yeah.
But
But
yeah, but
even then, I saw when I went, yeah,
not even remotely as much as this though.
yeah. So the challenge is because you don't have the final image in front of you, right? When you should film, you have to wait and to see. So
Hmm.
it's like the correction you have to do, very, very extensive tests to make sure everything fall in place. And but at the end, the challenge is amazing because they're razor sharp, going on the wrong side or the good side. So that for me, that was kind of challenging and nice to have that really high technical challenge. It's kind of
Yeah,
rare when I have that extreme sweat,
yeah,
coming back
Yeah.
because I guess we've been around, but this is but and then I think on this one because of Jonah mainly, we push it a bit further, I think, and that we're not safe, we really keep pushing it on a level as far as integrating the light inside the world so we can recreate like heavy backlight, for example,
yeah,
without being safe and exposed and not be afraid of being very dark. At one point you go, oh, maybe we should put just a black a black curtain. You know what I mean? Like really pushing the edge and to be extremely and then so it's really great to be able to push it all the way, and not be safe like most of the time is everybody's trying to stay in the very safe zone. So
I
so
think
so
it's also good that you don't obviously the volume, it doesn't project light, so to speak. So
yeah.
if you do want a backlight, you've got to put it in frame. If you want the sun in shot, you've got to break a hole in the wall and put the sun in shot. Like
Wow.
you can't just put the hot spot of the sun there and go, that's great, because that's not going to project any light.
Yeah.
So things like that, and that's where Jonah was great at kind of giving us license to do that and really encouraged us to do that. Where sometimes you get in those worlds, people go, but the sun would never be there, and you kind of go, I know, but it looks cool, like
Yeah.
that,
Yeah.
and things like that. And we had a lot of help from Bruce McCleary as well,
Yeah.
and his team at the very beginning that kind of did a lot of the testing procedures with film, and so we were able to make sure that our film stocks, the color matching, because one of the big problems, as David was saying, with film is when you look through the video tap, you think that, oh my God, this is going to be a disaster, because the video tap is terrible to look at. You're
Sure.
trying to match the volume where the real volume is and the set is. So a lot of that work was done before, as David said, testing before, so that all those color decisions would have been made before. And so once that kind of gives you the freedom then to go in with your spot meter, and you've already done your exposure balances and your color tinting and stuff. Even though sometimes it might look really weird, right, David, to your eye, you go, "Oh my God,
Oh yeah.
the color is mad." But
Hmm.
obviously, we know we've already tested it on film, and it looks great. So it gives you a little bit of confidence there. But David's right; it is squeaky bum time.
There's very few shows that shouldn't film. I mean, there's one of the main reason I'd say, okay, yeah, I'm going back on this because shooting film, So it reintroduce a bit of the magic that we had to sets. Like people like question, what are you doing? So there's a little bit of that. You feel a bit more cowboy than when you shoot with the digital that everybody see the final result in front of
Hmm.
them. So, but this way, yeah, you back up. I feel a bit sometimes a bit more in control, you know, you just lead the way and hopefully it looks good on the other side. But
I want to show this scene from episode 5 of season 2, and this is when we first get to experience what the game players have experienced, which is the overwhelming beasts known as the Death Claws. So let's take a look at this scene, and we can talk about it for a moment.
About what to do in this situation?
Run.
Do you have any more drugs? And I really think I need some more drugs. Do you have any more?
Drugs? No, I ain't got any more drugs.
Okay, then which weapon would you recommend for this?
Got a rocket launcher in that bag?
Okay.
Very cool. You know what? I actually had, when I was preparing for this interview, I was actually looking and I mentioned the Death Claws scene in episode 5 before I even saw this. I was like, I do want to talk about this scene. It is fantastically ominous, and I think it does credit to the game of introducing these characters. Can you talk to me about this scene and about your thoughts about this and what went into it?
I suppose I just wanted to make sure that it didn't, like, you know, that it was dark enough to believe that there were monsters there, but at the same time, you want to see them. That's always the balance. And I think it was just a case of getting the real atmosphere of the place and, you know, not having it too bright. But at the same time, don't, you know, seeing everybody's work, you know, the production design, everything on it, capturing the emotion and the visceral nature of those, because those death claws were, you know, the heads and stuff like that, they were puppeteered, you know, and the claws that would go into the top of the car, things like that, those. So, you know, it's just about trying to capture the sort of visceral nature of it all, just to, you know, keep it as dangerous as possible.
We're getting to a point now where I can't tell anymore. There's a push for practical visual effects and doing stuff with puppets and doing stuff with real things, and then some people will go straight to CGI. And film and TV nowadays is doing kind of a mix of both. Some people are really like getting heavy-handed, embracing, you know, old school techniques of makeup and puppets and those kind of things. And then some of this can only be done with, you know, some post-visual effects or some, you know, nuke system or whatever it may be. How much of this, of what we see as an audience viewer inside of a scene like this, is actual physical things and puppets and whatnot? And
there's a lot of it, because one of the things about having the real puppets there, or the real things there, is that you have to like them. So, yeah, you know, there's a real trap of going down the road of doing things in VFX where you basically, you're going, right, well, that monster is going to be over there. Oh, that's great. But, you know, if the puppet's there, you've got to light it and you've got to backlight it, and then you've got to make sure that it has a glisten on it or something like that. And that all echoes into how the set feels. So sure, the set has layers now because you've lit it, because it was a real physical thing. There was a manifestation of what was there. Where my worry is sometimes with VFX, and they don't have a proxy or a dummy or anything like that in, is that basically you're not layering the set with light that you normally would if there was a real subject there.
Yeah, of course.
You know, so that's for me. I'm a very some DPs light sets and then let things happen within the sets. I'm completely the opposite. I like the actors, and then let the sets almost look after themselves. That's how I kind of look at it.
Sure.
So I love having depth and gaps in between foreground and background. So you got real depth perception and things like that there. So yeah, for me it was very important, just because I could go right. Well, I would put a light there, and that light would go there because with the puppets there, I can see them, and therefore that would create some other effect somewhere down the line. That is just a really layered image.
David, how about for you? Is it interesting to go from practical versus VFX post
Yeah,
CGI?
yeah, obviously, when you have the puppeteer, I mean, to have for on the DP level, lighting level, having the puppet there and creating the world with them, yeah, it's a world of difference for sure. So, and you pay more attention and you make it, you make sure they look good, so that for sure it's really, yeah, for me it's essential to for the even if they sometimes they replace it completely, I'm not talking about this show in particular, but they were there and you took care of them and making sure that you see them the way you want to look at it. But and then I'm a bit like John, it's funny because we're looking at shows now and you're like, I'm lighting the actor, it's important that they're there and it's for me that's where, okay, where are they gonna sit, where are they gonna go, where are they gonna walk, and that's how I start my lighting, and and it, yeah, for me, it makes the big difference too. So you feel it's the story, right? The actor of the story, and that's what for makes it move, and that's what the image I want the image to reflect, that story.
So I have a bit of a controversial question, I guess. John, you mentioned the idea of wanting it to be dark and wanting it to be moody and wanting it to be there. I know Fabian Wagner talked about on the Game of Thrones episode where audience members complained that it was too dark, and his response was partially that streaming services ruin the contrast range, but also, poor quality TVs and people watching things on their iPads is doing some damage here. I will tell you, I think season two, episode three, I think it was episode three, I watched in my living room on a bright Friday morning with the blinds wide open, and I've said to myself, well, this is never going to work. That episode was particularly dark. I think it was that episode was particularly dark. What is your thoughts on the challenges of trying to keep it moody enough and trying to keep it dark enough, and then also not
Well,
alienating the audience?
it's very interesting because I shot episode 3. So I think it's for me. I think it's an instinct that you have. I mean, obviously you've got to be able to see it. Obviously, there's night and there's film light. Obviously, if you go out at nighttime, it's much darker than we create on film. But it's a style. You're trying to create a mood. So I would say that. I can't comment about that episode of Game of Thrones because I haven't seen it, but I would say that it just depends on the subject matter. It depends on what you're doing, and I think ultimately it's like when you're filming, people go into a room with flashlights, and you can see everything in the room.
Yeah.
Like for me, straight away, if I was a viewer, I would be put off by that. So I think it's just a personal taste, and sometimes you have to. One of the reasons we probably light things up a little to grade down is that you can keep some detail if you light it, and
Yeah.
grade it down. But if you don't light it and you're trying to lift it, there's just nothing there, just
Yeah.
mud.
Is there a concern? Do you think about the audience or think about the
Yeah,
viewer
of course.
when you're lighting this, or
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, yeah, because ultimately you're there. You're not there for yourself. You're there to tell a story, and it's part of storytelling. Like, for me, the whole idea of lighting and framing and filming is you're a visual storyteller. So
Yeah.
if you can't see the story you're telling, well, you're never going to tell. You're not on a winner straight away. But for me, it's yeah, definitely think about the audience because I'm an audience member myself on other shows, and I want to see what's going on. But at the same time, I want to be put in a place that is visually relevant for what you're watching.
In general, I do consider, a little bit more, I think, the medium. But nowadays, I would say that worry doesn't exist because the TV are really good. And I think compared to 20 years ago, 15 years ago, I was a bit more careful, I would say, to make sure that it render on the TV a bit in a general sense. But I think now we don't have to worry anymore. But like to go back to where we were saying, for me, it's important to see, to light for the actors. So maybe it's my style of light, it's a little bit more safe, I guess, because, I'm worried first about the actors, and then after I worry about the set.
Interesting.
But sometimes, I mean, it's great to be in silhouette, not seeing in the front at all and stuff like that. And so it's the appetite of the director or the writer and the showrunner, you discuss. But obviously, you create a world, with them, and then you agree on the limit and how much you can push and which direction you want to go. At the end, it's their show, and we're there to service the way they want to tell the story, right? So
Sure.
you can't go, just do your own movie.
I went into the show watching it expecting I knew kind of the backstory, or I knew enough to say this is based in a video game, this is post-apocalyptic. I'm expecting, maybe some bleach bypass, some ideas of some kind of, otherworldly post-nuclear annihilation. And then into the first season, towards the end of the first season, I I'm watching a Western. Like when it comes down to it, I'm watching a Western. And you know, visually, I feel like this has all the elements of a Western, except it has these fantastical characters in these, military suits and this armor and stuff like there. Um, in terms of the shots though, just the use of the wide shots and the expansive landscapes that you're shooting in a lot of these scenes, was there inspiration that was based on westerns in terms of there?
Definitely see Western in it. I mean, we shoot anamorphic, so it's for the
And
scale and the
yeah,
scope.
yeah, yeah. And we keep
Mm,
the ratio. We shoot anamorphic, but we keep that ratio 2:4
yeah.
to.
Definitely. I mean, also there's something our framing as well. Like we have the cowboys and a lot of those sort of shots, and that we frame for the hat on the ghoul and things like that. It feels very Western to me, anyway.
For sure. And the desert, the scope. I mean, it's obviously the world he's living in, it's 100% Western. I
Yeah.
mean, that street, that it can, yeah, it's all.
Are there things that go into creating that look of a Western, or things that go into like your choice of shot or choice of angle or choice of to there, beyond the anamorphic, obviously, in creating that super wide
Very
shot?
specific about the time of day for light.
Sure.
To really give you that stark contrast and imagery. That's always a big factor in how we shoot, and we're encouraged to do that by the showrunners as well. Actually, that's something that they're quite keen on.
So you're shooting in California, correct? A lot of this is in California.
Second season was all California, yeah.
I like California, and because California, I guess California would lend itself to, the West. You have a lot of those kind of, sub-desert areas, that allow for that. Was lighting working with you?
Yeah, well, I mean, we kind of try and bend the schedule around the light. So, we'll chase the sun all day. That's basically what myself and David is probably the biggest part of our thought process when we're
Yeah.
in prep
Yeah.
is how to chase the sun all day and still get all the shots done that we need to for the scenes.
And it's great on that show because it's so it's a priority. So a lot of show they say, no, you get out of my office. I'm not scheduling that way, but because they know it's an important thing in the part of the character and stuff. So we can, we actually people are working into even the production designer when he goes first thing he looks is where he's going to put the set more than any more than any show I worked on, right?
Yeah.
He knows we want to be there, so
Yeah.
it's like a given. And that's so it's great, it's great that way. I mean, I mean, I would say it comes from Jonathan Nolan. He's a maniac. I remember I did one episode of Westworld first
Yeah.
season with him, and it was shooting. You shoot one angle, and then you do something else all the way in between for 6 hours, and you come back to shoot the other angle of the scene you started in the morning just to get the backlight on every angle. So it's
Yeah. I
fun.
was
It's fun to have somebody who's like supporting the look, right? So it's like we don't get that chance very often.
Westworld was a very dark, serious, violent show, and this is like violence as camp. It's a lot
Yeah,
more
very
playful in that way.
campy. Yeah. Yeah, for sure. I mean, that comes from Graham, who, I mean, he come from The Office, right? That's
Yeah.
his work before. So that comedy and that campiness, yeah, it comes out, and it's good to. I mean, it's great to be able to have that balance. I think still, I think so rich that visually that show by having that humor, without having to wash out everything. So it's a good, yeah, it's a great combination, I think. Yeah.
I want to take a look at this other scene from episode 8 in season 2. And this is a kind of a two time period scene. And so some of the things I was talking about before about this idea of shooting, this I don't even know when this time period is. It's in the past, pre-apocalypse, or pre-fallout, and then into the fallout. Let's take a look at this scene, and we can talk about the some of the angle elements of this, but also some of the story elements of this.
If your family is here, I'll be happy for you. But what is your plan? How will you protect them? With the Enclave still out there, there is no safety, as I tried to warn you all those years ago.
I want you to know that it wasn't me.
What wasn't you?
Whatever it is that's about to happen. I told you, there are far worse people than I, Mr. Howard. I commend you for trying to play the hero. I really do.
The light that's on that backlight that's on Barb, the halo around her is just mesmerizing there.
Yeah, again, it's like for me those flashback and stuff, it's like I try to almost hyper stylize a little bit more, that world, the 50s world, and created those kind of magazine backlight of the time, That's why they get the inspiration. And yeah, so this was the airport scene, and we shot in a building in Los Angeles. And I was lucky enough that there was a um, balcony all over the open space. It's balcony, so I could put backlight everywhere, so it's perfect. A lot of time it's like, oh yeah, great, this location works perfectly, and you have a chance to achieve what you kind of think about. But a lot of time it falls in place.
So there's a scene, and I don't know where it came from. It might have been in the writing. It was probably, I don't know. It may have been the writing, but there's a scene I want to talk about in I believe episode 5, which as an idea was fascinating to me, and I just loved it. Uh, Henry is experimenting with the chip in the back of the neck, and he's killing mice, and then he starts putting the chip into people and starts killing people. Um, and there's this explosion of guts and brain matter on the window. Um, and there's a pan that deliberately goes away from seeing the brain exploding, which seemed foolish because up until then we've been seeing brains exploding every scene and people's heads getting chopped off and people's limbs getting chopped off and everyone's dying in some gruesome way. But it's the camera's deliberately pulling away from seeing the explosion and only seeing the aftermath of the explosion. And you kind of create this vibe that when we go to the pull away to the glass window, here comes the explosion. You've done this has happened with the mice, and now it's happened with a number of people that have been killed. And then when the snake oil salesman gets the final chip, the camera pulls over to the right, but Hank has solved the problem with the chip and it's not going to kill him. But the camera still pulls over to the right. And as an audience, we wait for the explosion to happen. And the explosion doesn't happen. But we still pulled away to look away to create this kind of like anticipation of like, oh, here it comes. And then you pull away and then I found that charming. I just found that idea charming.
It kind of lent on what had happened in episode 1 and 2, because I had shot the stuff with the mice exploding, and the other guy, with the drinking the champagne, so the idea was that you would kind of dupe the audience into thinking, oh, here we go again. But then I suppose that's part of visual storytelling in a way that's interesting and not too on the nose. It's like not putting a hat on a hat. It's like you're kind of going, how do we tell this story visually without just, seeing it, like put a little bit of grammar in there.
Yeah.
And that came from initially Fred Toy in episode 1 and 2, and then Liz Friedlander in episode 5. She was like, between the two of them, they came up with, what, why don't we tell this as a visual storyteller and kind of put a little red herring in there.
Yeah, well, I think that's part of it, is that there is, I was going to say language, but I think grammar is a better choice of it. You kind of invent this, visual terminology of every time we pan over to the glass, this must equal this. And you teach the audience how to speak that language, and then you trick them, and I think in a typical film or series, it might go with a, intense hold on the character with sweat beading while we wait for this and we build up that tension that way.
Yeah.
We choose to look away because we know the explosion is going to happen, and that gets us just the same way, but with a different
and
a different
it's
idea.
Interesting. It's interesting because we tried to. So, for example, when he goes to the hotel room, where Lucy and the ghoul are there, after he's waiting for her with his feet up on the bed, and she comes in and she's taking the Addictol and things like that. that it's wanted to play with the focus pull on the back of his neck in his reveal in that room to see the chip was in the back of his neck with a focus pull rather than to kind of pull back over his shoulder. And so you're still keeping the camera move similar as pulling back from the window, but now you've kind of pulled back from the over his shoulder and you pull focus to the back of his neck, and that completes the story. That it's worked.
In some scenes after that, or I think maybe in that same scene, is him getting punched out the window.
Yes.
For both of you, there are a lot of complicated action scenes, stunts, choreography, kind of those kind of things. What is that like to do that on set? And what is that like to kind of choreograph that and work with that? And are there multiple cameras involved in that?
Yeah, I mean, those are the tricky kind of technical thing that I love. I still enjoy doing and solving it with all those, these pretty top-notch people, special effect and in the art department. So they're great. So you always find the solution and you go, okay, this guy's getting impaled and he has to pull himself out of a pole. How are you going to do this? And you scratch your head and you figure it out. This we always have two camera, right? So the number of camera, it's like, and when we need a third one, we bring it. But so that's a very much nowadays, on TV, you always have two camera no matter what. So it's not a big it's just part of the daily routine. But solving those technical kind of otherworldly otherworldly if action, right? So that's with especially with the good, he's getting dragged, getting, the way he gets moved around and stay alive. It's fun because it's like it's not you don't do I guess it's very much I guess you could be like a Marvel or something with a technical. So
I
but
think
there's
with
technical challenge and we do everything in camera, so it's always
yeah,
fun to
I
to
think with
figure it
with
out.
with that shot in particular of him coming out the window,
Yeah.
I wanted to do it in one. I wanted to try and yet again, like to catch the audience off guard by being with him as he fell, and then the impaling comes straight up at camera. And we actually thought about using a profile shot of him falling through the air as well. But I think sometimes, David, like we're kind of so used to it that we kind of go, if you put a cut in, the audience knows something's going to happen, or they think it's not real. Whereas if you can do it as much as you can in one shot, and something happens and it catches you by surprise, you kind of catch the audience. That the audience is so smart now. As soon as they see the cuts, they almost understand how we did it. Like
In terms of a show like this, it's interesting because it's different than film, or it's different than shooting a movie per se. You have the showrunners, Graham and Genevieve, but then each episode, may have a different director, and those directors are sometimes, come in at different phases in the process, and now they're directing, one off of an episode. How does that work for you as cinematographers working on 2, 3, 4 episodes, coming in with a different director for each of them? And then I know you mentioned Liz and you mentioned Fred coming into these episodes, are to develop a kind of a working relationship with them as a director. Is there a process involved in that? And is there I imagine there's meetings involved in that, but how does that work in terms of, having a showrunner versus the particular scenes or particular episode directors?
When they hired, they obviously they understand they have to bring, to keep the continuity. So I think that's fairly straightforward for me. And as DP, it's funny because on Game of Thrones, there was five DP, five director every episode and stuff like that. And it was the first time I did a show where it was so seems to be so left
Chaotic.
and right? And even if I know that it's not the same sound of lighting, nobody sees it. I'm always amazed. I mean, of course, some people who knows the job, the industry, say, "Oh yeah, this and yeah," but it's the same actors, the same costume, and basically the same tone of the script, and nobody sees the difference. Or this director shot it a bit more fluidly, less coverage, but but nobody, it's like it's blends in the overall arc of the season. So I think I'm always amazed that you don't have to follow by the book some rules, somehow it falls in place.
I suppose in a way you're feeding off the script, really, to be honest. So like, normally I think one of the things that I find different directors bring is they feed off the script differently. So, from that point of view, you're they might be looking for other things out of the scene, other storytelling things. But I really enjoy it. I enjoy the process of, you know, working with different directors on the same series. Even though I've done, like, for example, when I did Zero Day, it was one director, and it was really nice to do all 6 episodes. Um, it's really nice too to do something with a few directors on a series, because they're really, you mix things up a bit. Everybody reads the script differently.
In terms of that, in terms of working with different directors and working with the showrunners, I'm always curious about the level of kind of independence you have as a DP, to say, hey, I think I want to do it this way, or I think I want to do it that way, or, I mean, you're partially tied to the script, but, having that freedom to explore other options or other perspectives or other ideas. Were there moments in any of these episodes where you said, hey, let's change the whole idea here and do it this way, or let's approach it this way in terms of the shots, in terms of, how the story's being told, or any of those aspects?
From, I suppose, like, for example, one is in Caesar's Legion. There was when Lucy's on the cross and she sees the ghoul and she kind of is hallucinating. I wanted to use a hand crank camera for that and multiple exposures and do it in camera. And once you're inclusive about it and you don't go on a solo run on the day and everybody goes and watch the dailies and go, what, there's a problem, what happened? I think they were all very positive about it. You probably do a B camera that's belt and braces that is panning normally or whatever, so that you've got it. But I mean, I think I've always found if you can include people in your decision making and your journey, a lot of the times they'll be very positive, and sometimes they might go, you know what, that's not really the show, and actually that's a really good thing too, because you don't have to waste any more time on it.
No, the same thing, like you said, and you go back to what you said, John, before. I mean, we feed off the script, so it's never, it's always coming to tell the story the way we feel it should be, or the way we felt it was the prior season or prior episode. So it's not like we're not in a vacuum, right? So it's where, I mean, you really have to be really out there, like to be, I mean, I think it's, completely
Yeah.
blind to be able to go completely astray. Yeah, I mean,
So
those kind of show anyway. There's a tremendous amount of freedom. When I'm sure there's other show, it's so much more strict, right? It's
Yeah.
like, but we don't do the show, me and John.
yeah, we don't. Myself and David steer clear of those.
How is the dailies experience for you working on this show inside of shooting in film, in terms of that? Is that a pleasurable thing to get to see next day dailies and have that kind of Christmas morning or present of, hey, it actually worked?
Yeah, no, for sure. I mean, it's the pleasure to see the next day can't wait to see the still first, and then we go in the. I mean, we kind of at lunch we kind of look at the dailies and see what worked, and some other stuff didn't work as well, maybe, but just for yourself, you don't think. But it is 100% a pleasure. But I mean, for me, there's a part of shooting film is you can spend all the time and you kind of know what it's going to be, and you don't like this and you don't, you say, but you can you take more chance. That means, the image is like, okay, I'm not 100% sure, but okay, I'm not gonna try to control. Let's go for it. And the next day, you have so much more better surprise because when you see the final result right away, you correct it right away. And I feel sometimes, instead of let it go, you have tendency to polish a little bit too much, or and then the fact to say, okay, oh, we don't have time. I think it's gonna be okay, and then you're really happy that you didn't add a light, or you didn't, that kind of thing. So that's not having a little bit of that uncertainty was like allow me anyway to discover new things.
And I kind of religiously live off my spot meter, so like even though I'm shooting digital at the moment, I still use my spot meter now. So when I go to shoot on film, I've no I it's the same. I dial it in. It's the same thing for me. And
Gotcha.
so I basically one of the things I love about shooting on film is that I'm standing beside the camera with my spot meter, literally reading the light off the actor's face at different points, going, okay, well, I know where that's going to be. And look at the balance in the background. That's probably a little too hot or whatever, or maybe it's great that it's too hot. So there are little discussions you're having with yourself all the way through while you're watching it. You're actually talking to yourself more. And you're working out the maths more in your head a little bit. Like you're going, okay, the backlight I have a stop of five. By the time, the key about film for me is once you get your ND level right of your exterior or your interior, you got to get your balance right of the exposure. Then you're kind of just playing, as David says, with your eye and your spot meter, and you're shaping the light. You're still shaping it. You're still doing all that stuff, but you're present beside the camera. You're not looking at a video. So I tend to just stand beside the camera the whole time. And if somebody needs a poly, instead of one of the sparks doing it, I'll be doing it. Because so for me, I find I'm much more present at the camera with film, and on digital you're a little bit disconnected. You're a little bit further away in your tent because by the nature of it, um, it's much more focused around the dit tent and all of that stuff and your histograms and all that sort of thing.
Sure.
But at the same time, when I'm doing my broad strokes in the scene, I've got my meters and I'm using my light meter. So I'm not changing my process just because it's digital or it's film.
Yeah.
And so I feel very comfortable on film just using my meters. And I love, as David says, for me anyway, you ring up the lab at 5 a.m. and the photocam have a little iPad that can give you a selection of stills of what you've shot.
Yeah.
And you can make little tweaks to them and they can do them in real time. So they'll go refresh your iPad and they'll send you back your stills. You might go, oh man, that looked deadly. Like deadly, that's great. And you hang up your iPad and you go, I don't have to get up for an hour. And that's the best hour sleep you have all night. Because you're doing the walking into work. You've seen what you've shot. You have a smile on your face. I used to work with a great British GP called Ken McMillan, and every morning he'd come in and he'd go, well, it came out.
We see
that's
something.
it.
Yeah, it's Christmas morning. It's Christmas morning. Just
Yeah.
like randomly running into, yeah, we succeeded. In terms of a shoot like this, really quickly, are there opportunity for reshoots if things don't hit right or things don't work right, or is the pace too fast?
I mean, my second day, I think it was the film stayed in the bath for 7 hours instead of 30 minutes in a developer, and we had huge. There was, but we fixed it in post. They didn't want to reshoot. I was completely blown away because usually that's the reshoot happened because the lab fucks up and the film
Yeah,
breaks
yeah.
in the lab. Those are the reshoots. I'm sure if something really good disaster, and it's a, something critical, we would reshoot. Uh, but yeah, it didn't happen anyway when I was there.
So, my last question I want to ask is really more of a personal question for both of you, less about the show. But I'm always curious of all the, aspects of filmmaking that you could have got involved in, whether it be pre-production or post-production there. What drew you to camera, and what was the introduction into camera that made it seem like this was the art form that you wanted to explore?
Very young, I was taking pictures, right? So that I always been, but in my head, I went to journalism school. I thought I'd be like a war photographer. I thought I'd be dodging bullets and trying to make a difference in the world or something like that. But when I came out of school, I realized how tough a job it is, and in the same time, the music video industry started and so and I fell in that. It was very easy as a young to quickly becoming a cinematographer with quite a bit of like exposing a lot of film. So I got lucky that way, but I always wanted to be, I'm a terrible writer. I tried writing and I knew it was a visual thing. I knew that, that was my world, taking picture or lighting, and I knew from this very early age that was my path, and I didn't try to push it away. So yeah, so it was creating images from the very much start. Yeah, it was my, I guess, the path very quickly.
Well, I was a clapper boy when I was 12. So
Wow.
my dad shot My Left Foot and that sort of those films. And so I was the clapper boy for him from I was a very young age, and became a focus puller on maybe 50 or 60 films, and never thought I'd be a DP. I was very happy being a focus puller. I was doing some great big films, and you know, uh, and then I just clicked one day. I just decided that I wanted to be a DP. Went into the wilderness for a long time, but came back out and the other side of it. But yeah, so it's all I've ever known. I take pictures, of course, all the time, and but yeah, I was just a clapper boy.
Wow.
Yeah, that was it. And was hooked. The bug of the film set and the people. It's like being in the circus, really. And the people are generally great. The crew of people are amazing. Most actors are amazing. Directors, like I've been so lucky since I've been 12 to work on some amazing projects. And so I think, yeah, it's just for me, it came from my father, and my mother was a singer, so we kind of had a very bohemian family. So
Gotcha.
it was easy transition, even though it wasn't in the 80s in Ireland. Trying to get work in film was very hard.
I understand. I think it's interesting because, John, you said that it's kind of like a circus, and David's aspiration when he was younger was to go into war zones and shoot war zones. I feel like Fallout is the right combination of a war zone circus. It hits both those targets pretty well. Thank you,
Yeah,
gentlemen, so much for
definitely.
uh, getting a chance to talk to us today. Again, I'd like to just reintroduce John Conroy and David Franco, who both have worked on this show, Fallout, as well as numerous other shows. I'm excited to see season 3 and see what's going to happen now and who else is going to get their head exploded. Thank you very much. That has been it for me, Chad Anderson, for another installment of Sight, Sound, and Story. We'll see you in future installments where we will talk to other cinematographers, editors, and visual effects artists, audio engineers, etc. Gentlemen, thank you again so much.
Thanks, Chad.
Appreciate it.
Thank you, David. I'll
Thanks, a
see you soon,
pleasure.
hopefully.
And we'll see you
Yep.
around.
Take care.
See you.
Take care.
Bye.
Everybody, thank you for watching Behind the Lens of Fallout, episode 56 of Sight, Sound, and Story. Please like, subscribe, comment, and let us know the kinds of things that you want to see in the future. Thanks again to John Conroy, ASC and ISC, and David Franco. Thank you to Chad Anderson for moderating. And of course, our sponsors, Filmmaker U, American Cinema Editors, edit stock, and a special thanks to Jason Banky and Janet Dalton from Manhattan Edit Workshop. Without you, it would just be me talking into a Zoom. So everybody, see you next time on Sight, Sound, and Story.